What do you think? These are the pressing questions.
I don't know what you should do with your hat, but you know what I do know? I am legally obligated to say that Mrs. Play was right. We'll get to that later. Welcome, everyone, to the Wrong Button Podcast, the show where we talk all things nerd, most things video games, and generally anything that tickles our fancy. Tyler.
What an open.
Thank you. I like cold opens. Cold opens are like, I think it's really Brooklyn Nine-Nine made me super love a good cold open.
So cold. Chris is just getting the cold open from the fridge in the middle of the night. Another great episode, in my opinion.
Fantastic episode. The Return.
Yeah. I like... Oh, now you're incorporating the episode titles into this.
I know. I literally did that.
Loved it. I don't know if I'm going to say anything other than loving it, really. There's one thing that really irked me about the episode, and it actually starts at the very beginning.
Okay.
We didn't get we didn't get the initial conversation between Hunter and Crosshair. And I was like, are you kidding me? You end on a cliffhanger like that? I'm salivating for the dialogue, and then all of a sudden Omega's waking up in the morning. I was like,
I slept great. So throwing this at yes, 100%. I was. Your significant other. I even talked about this when we were at work. Like, no, we're expecting the conversation of, Crosshair, and I want to see the like. Are we taking you? Are we not taking you? Are we saying get in the other fucking ship? Get in this ship. Like, we'll deal with this later. We got to go. They have I know that they have a time crunch. We know that they have a time crunch. We know that they stole an Imperial ship, and they are like actively being tracked. Potentially, maybe we didn't get anything that I wanted.
Nope.
But
neither here.
We didn't do that. So yeah, you're right. Not being immediately after, but at the same time, what were they gonna do? I guess they're gonna overload the reactor because they don't have any thermal detonators anymore. Those are gone too. 2 episodes ago, really ate the thermal detonators almost literally.
Nice.
Yeah. So you're right. We didn't get that dialogue, but I also don't think it was gonna say Hunter and Crosshair weren't gonna say anything that actually mattered.
That's fair.
That's personally how I feel on that one.
I think that's what a lot of us do, is that we just project this massive heart-to-heart conversation, or like having it out. But then you realize Hunter and Crosshair both suck at sharing their emotions.
They're so much more alike.
Oh,
than they both want to admit.
Two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
So opening up, nice to see that Omega looked like she got the best sleep of her life, back in her nice little cramped gunner compartment.
She got to hug her bad batch stuffed animal.
Yeah, it's like you're sleeping in like in the gun compartment of a Omicron class attack shuttle.
Yeah.
Spacious.
It's a really cool shuttle. I'm honestly one of the few, and I know that shuttle's kind of home. But I'm also a little surprised that they haven't gotten like a cruiser like that, because that's like a quick attack ship. Like, I would deploy that, go in, go out, sit my actual ship back, like, a couple parsecs away, fly in and come in and do it this way. But
isn't that the Bad Batch's MO though? Is that they're in and out?
Yeah, they are, but like now they kind of also need a home. And while that ship is a good home, it's not like you can't really grow into it. Like, it gets cramped because that used to be like Wrecker's place to sleep, and they literally made it for Omega because she's a kid and she deserves her own room. All the brothers now have to share their room.
I was going to say the rest of their sleeping has just got to be awful.
And it's like even when we talk about it's not portrayed. It's kind of like that impossible size situation that happens in video games. The Mantis from Fallen Order and Jedi Survivors. They talk about how when you're going back to that area, there are like doors, and those doors drop down to like what are actually escape pods, but those escape pods become everyone's room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, but it makes sense. But here it's like you don't have an escape pod. Like, that ship goes up, you're going up.
Yeah.
And stuff like this.
Shout out to the Mantis in the Star Wars' best kitchen area.
Oh my god, yes,
agrees.
100%.
Shout out Grease.
Greasy money.
But actually, it's a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about. Is you see the difference between Wrecker, Hunter, and Crosshair a lot throughout this entire episode, and it's something that we harped on last episode was the differences in how they're living their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Crosshair's been a soldier this entire time, has been in service to the Empire. That's all he's known. He didn't really have much change from his days in the Republic to then. Whereas the Bad Batch got to experience the other side of life, being out of the loop, that sort of thing. So I loved getting to see after Omega wakes up, you just have Hunter and Wrecker just enjoying their morning coffee, or 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 Jawa juice,
their Java, whatever.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. that gave me a little laugh. It's like, hey, they're just like me, just waking up,
have a
nice
coffee,
cup of Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And then Crosshair's not even there.
So it was a little bit when we woke up. It was a very much like I'm gonna use one of my catchphrases now, a bit of a red herring, because it was like Crosshair, like he didn't stay, and it's like, are we really fucking? I'll go get him. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
He's still here.
I'm like, are we about to have a Zorro like 40 episodes of filler because he left again? Like, what are we doing with this?
Crosshair's back, and he's gone.
And I like that Crosshair was like down doing something that brings him comfort. It's not bringing him comfort right now, but typically, like, his marksmanship brings him a lot of comfort. It makes him very, it makes him very, very, I don't know, whole. I almost want to say
makes him feel useful.
Yeah, and Omega goes down there and has the conversation like, you can't avoid him forever. Blah 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 blah. He's missing every shot.
This one brings us joy. This one does not bring us joy.
But I also really enjoyed in this one that we got to see, like, so what is it like being a sniper? Is it just looking down a scope? And we get Crosshair going like, no, it's everything. I'm like, okay. So she was taught by Echo. She was taught by Tech. She can track like Hunter. She's a little wild like Wrecker. I don't know.
I was gonna say that
they like food. They like junk food. They go get those candied chestnut thingies from right outside Sid's place.
The connection she got from Wrecker.
Yeah.
Because if there's anybody she's closest to, it's Wrecker. It's that brotherly connection with camaraderie. There we go.
They've got the most esprit de corps, you might say.
Yeah.
But what we also see here is I think it's the first season when she kind of gravitates towards Hunter, because Hunter like is the true parental, makes her feel safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's teaching her how to track. Like, you have to look for everything here. And then now we're getting an exact reflection, because you're right. Crosshair and Hunter, two sides of the same coin. And he's like, you're not just looking down a scope. You're looking at everything. And he starts pointing out some different things. And he's like, and like knowing when you're being watched. And then you look up and you got Hunter and Wrecker not necessarily trusting that he won't hurt Omega or something. But it was such a good way to like tie in what was taught earlier to what comes out now and a little bit later on. So
his hand's getting worse too. The tremor. And first of all, missed our favorite returning character, AZ's back. I was wondering where they had dropped him off, or was he just in the attack? I think
cruiser? He was just chilling there.
Yeah, just doing AZ things.
Yes.
I love how out of every person to get help with, it's AZ helping him with the target practice. And also pointing out his success rate. What was it? 56%.
50%. 50%.
Not great, Bob. Not great.
Ooh, it's a bold choice, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out. It was a nice moment of levity, but we also then got to see the frustration of Crosshair, because he's doing the thing where he's meticulously like changing. He's got it on the stable. I can go really in depth about like how Crosshair was sighting in his rifle. It was really good. I just enjoyed that sequence. And we still don't know what the tremor is, and I'm so goddamn curious. Like, is it psychosomatic? Like, is it? Did you ever see? Did you ever see Sherlock, the Benedict Cumberbatch one?
Yeah.
Okay, the very first season or the very first episode for a study in Pink, which is a study in Scarlet for those of you who've read the books. He's analyzing Watson, and he goes like, Afghanistan or Iraq, and he goes, you have a limp, of course you have a therapist, and he goes, shot him like, oh, it was the shoulder, and he couldn't, like, he missed like 2 things.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, was he wounded like in his leg, but he feels so worthless that it's affecting his trigger arm?
Mm-hmm.
And so that I was like, oh, are we gonna get that? Like, is he gonna have to sit down and talk to this person who's gonna take a look at it and have them go like, hey man, you need to be right with you. That's all this is.
Kind of like Toph to Korra in the Legend of Korra. It's like, well, you can't can't refine your bending with all that metal stuck in you. And she's like, what? Love Toph. I understand Crosshair's refusal to let AZ take a look at him, but come on. Mm-hmm. He's a medical droid who's looked at clones. He was on Kamino. This was his literal
job.
Yeah, his function. So maybe, I don't know, let the medical droid take a look at you.
Yeah.
That might be helpful. I'm not sure. But this entire situation with his tremors very closely mirrors what it was like with Wrecker in the first season when his chip was activating.
Oh,
and he was
like
trying to fighting it.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of feels like. It's going to come to a head here pretty soon. And that's what I feel like we're drawing a lot of similarities to.
So I'm not sure. We'll get into it a little bit later in the episode, so we can like continue on here.
Mm-hmm.
But so aside from analyzing, of course, that entire interrelationship, which is really the best part to see about this, is like we lost a character who we gave a lot of growth, and we finally had him like connect and be kind of more human.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, he just was more human. He was more character based than like computer guy. So and now we're getting that with Crosshair, but we're getting that to such like I screwed up level compared to like, hey, I know computers and I'm not good with people. Like it's just a very different dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see that. But I love the fact that Omega's like, well, we have this data pad, but we can't access it. And what was it? Easy sits there and goes like, oh, if you connect it to a terminal. No, it was Echo who says if you connect it to an Imperial terminal, it'll just open it up for you.
Speaking of which, Echo's back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Echo comes back. You want mom energy? Run up, biggest hug to Echo. Like gets down. No, like Echo is mom. Echo is just mom.
I can't. After making the family comparisons on this pod, that's all I look at when I think of Echo. And he just has like such insightful words for Omega, but also when diagnosing the relationship strains between Crosshair and Hunter.
Boy, does he nail it!
Yeah,
it's like they're more alike. It's just let them work it out. It'll be fine.
They're gonna have to have it out. Love having Echo back. It's the most full strength that we're gonna get the batch at, because this is, everybody's here.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how when they're talking about trying to access this terminal, Hunter tries to leave Wrecker and Omega at home, and I love how Omega, speaking for the audience so very obviously at this point, it's like, no, we just got everybody back. And I was screaming at the TV. I was like, yes, you guys are a team. You work better as a team. Things are bad when you split up.
I told him that. I told him to stay together.
Okay, Huang.
All right, look, it was a good pull.
And I was sitting there. I was really hoping that they'd stay together for this trip, which turns out they needed to.
Yeah.
You could see Crosshair's reluctance throughout that entire scene. This beautiful sunset on Pabu scene, by the way. Can we just shout out how amazing the art style is? Gorgeous show.
They did some really good stuff with art later that like I had to go back and look at almost frame by frame.
Yeah, it was a very, very, very pretty episode. You can definitely see Crosshair's reluctance to put his full trust in the Bad Batch too.
Mm-hmm.
because obviously you see that he is reluctant to share what's on his mind or information. You got to see more of the anger that Hunter has had built up about this whole situation, about Crosshair being back. I hated Hunter this episode for that reason, which is good because if you hate something a character is doing, oh thank you,
You're welcome.
If you hate something that a character is doing, chances are they were written really well because characters that piss you off have to be written well, or else it's just not believable. So pretty sunset scene. Crosshair eventually is like, I know where to find a terminal on a base that's very lightly defended. You want to know why? Because I used to be there.
Yeah. And once he said that, once that was said, he's like, I got a place. Is it available? He's like, yeah, it's there. Everything else is. It served its purpose. It's drastically understaffed. Like there were a lot of things in there where it's like, oh, that's actually.
And then you think back to just how heavy that episode with him and Mayday was.
Oh my god.
Ugh.
And yeah, so we now brought up with like Mayday. They go back to the outpost that Mayday was stationed on. The outpost that that is the time that Crosshair was like, okay, I'm on the wrong end of this. This isn't right. They were good soldiers. They did the thing. He needed a medic. He didn't have to die. These guys, these clones, my brothers, did not have to die. They could have been there.
You mean where Crosshair hit his crossroads?
Hey, I'll take it. That's
easily
really lining up there.
Oh god. Easily my favorite episode of last season.
It's a fantastic episode, and the fact that this episode, so this is where it is like the climax of the episode. You can definitely see that, like, okay, that is the end of the first arc. That is the end of, this is the episode, this is the end of the Bad Batch as a broken unit. They're not going to be perfect. Like, this isn't me saying, like, oh, all their conflict is, probably not. There's probably still going to be some here and there, but they're going to go back, or I'm sorry, they're not going to go back. They are going to go forward as the Bad Batches, like, with their original capabilities, I'm going to say.
We can stop referring to them as the Bad Batch and Crosshair.
Yeah,
it's just the Bad Batch now.
Yeah, I mean, come to think about it, though, we did get like a new member. Like Batcher's now part of the Bad Batch.
True.
So we did get another new member.
Shout out to Batcher being so important on this mission.
So yeah, they land, and this is where this is Mrs. Play is not forcing me to read this under any sort of duress, but Mrs. Play does want the podcast to know that she was right about the censors. The censors weren't there to keep out the rebels. The censors were there to keep out a big thing.
I am so proud of you for reading this statement that you curated on your own. So, we here on the podcast support everything that Mrs. Play says.
Yeah. So
yeah. So they start off.
She's a lovely woman. I love her to death. I just when she's right about some things that I'm normally always right about, she tends to be like, "No, I was right. No, you can tell I was right." As she should, because I give her crap, so it's only fair. Yeah. So they land, and Batcher starts kind of like yelling, and they're like, "Oh, it's Sonic Sensors keeping something out." And I was like, "Oh yeah, the rebels were there," and then Crosshair sits there and goes, it was keeping out the rebels. Don't worry about that problem. It's gone. Like, what do you mean it's gone? And he's like, I took care of it.
Sure you did. You've done a lot of terrible things.
But to me, it was good because they get there and now it's like, well, how did you know this base was here? What happened? He's like, I was here. I did do work here. It was such a good, like, I'm not going to tell you guys what I went through because it doesn't matter, I guess. But it is for you all to pick up that this is the crossroads for me. Go ahead, you were saying stuff.
Well, I was going to say, and Hunter actually isn't cool with that because Hunter, again, like me, I have to know things. I like to know things. And Hunter's giving him crap for it. The brotherly anger was on full display. Hunter's like, what do you mean, like, taking care of it? And I like how you get to see, like, the rest of the Bad Batch just kind of in, like, a weird spot about it in the background as they're sounding off on each other. It's like, guys, quit fighting. And again, Echo is like the word of, the word of reason. It's like,
they're gonna have to settle it at some point.
They're gonna come to was it come to blows is what he said.
I think he's like, they're gonna have to come about it at some point. I don't think it was necessarily come to blows.
Yeah.
But that joke was made later. Okay. Also, shout out to Batcher for just like, hey, we need to dig out this door. Digs out the door like comedically fast as a dog. I think the other big part there is that you're right. Hunter doesn't trust Crosshair, but Wrecker's like, well, Omega does, and Omega, she's not normally wrong. She's got a good eye for people.
Yep.
I trust her. Okay, that's all it is. Transitive property. This person trusts you, so I'm gonna trust you. Herder, I'm gonna break your neck, and I can. It's not like you can hit anything right now with your shots, but that's how it is, and I really do like that as well. But yeah,
I know that Hunter is afraid of losing Omega again, but you have to get past that trauma and realize how much Omega has grown. And it's the fact that, I don't know, they managed to escape from the most secure Empire, Imperial facility out there.
Yeah, on like a death world that's gonna eat. It has everything that can eat you there.
She's still a kid, sure, but I mean, if there's any kid to trust at this point in time, it's Omega.
It's Omega. So, they are completely capable.
Yeah, so they get in the base though. I love the Imperial base design. It just feels so. It still has that Clone Wars era kind of feel to it, but you can see a lot of the Imperial designs like start to take over.
Mm-hmm.
And the second that they got to the terminal, it's like, oh yeah, all the power's routed to the sensors. I was just sat there. I was like, oh god, if you turn those out, some hideous monstrosity is going to come for you, right?
Something's going to happen, yeah. And that's where Mrs. Play was right. Because I was like, no, I think they were there, but I'm like, once it happened, I was like, wait, they're literally emitting a sound. It's not just this isn't just like an electric fence. It is. Yeah. There's a sound. Something is.
Huge callback to the on Adelon in Star Wars Rebels when they find their base. They have the sensors that keep away the spiders.
And so I also thought that shout out to anyone who saw the new Dune movie. Hope you like it. I guess I like a little Dune in my Star Wars. It also made me think of the episode on Rhodia where Jar Jar was the Jedi Knight, and he goes into the swamp and comes out because the design was very similar, not as bioluminescent, but it was a very similar design to the giant bug or the giant caterpillar that came out to like stop the Separatist forces.
See, I was good callback, by the way.
That's where
great callback. Yeah. For me, my mind went immediately to SpongeBob with the giant Alaskan bullworm. That's exactly. Here's Chris with his refined taste and palate. Nice, like a Dune reference or a callback to an old Clone Wars movie or episode. Star Wars or SpongeBob collide.
I'm really giving it to Sandy. No, SpongeBob, I got the Sandy. That's its tongue. Oh, this is its tongue, and the whole cave is the. Yeah. At least And to be fair, like the Wrecker literally had to go push something somewhere else, so you might as well bring the SpongeBob to it. But yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it. Mrs. Play caught the trope very quickly. I do feel like every Star Wars has now, every show has done this.
Yeah.
With like, this keeps them out. Oh no, it's down. Oh no, and now we've got it for Clone Wars. We've got it for Rebels. We have it for Bad Batch.
Had it for The Mandalorian too.
Oh, which one's The Mandalorian?
Well, I guess technically they hunted the crate Was it a crate dragon?
Oh, the crate dragon?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a canonized part of KOTOR. And then they literally ripped the pearl out of it.
Yeah. But in that base, I think we got one of the most important signs of character development, and really a really touching scene is that while the batch is trying to get the terminal and stuff taken care of and getting the data pad working, Crosshair kind of wanders off on his own, and you can see that he doesn't really feel like he belongs here right now.
Oh, we should also toss back that like they kept his armor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He looked great.
They're like, hey, we hope it still fits. We kept your armor. It felt wrong to get rid of it. And Hunter was looking at him. I think Hunter was disproving of him getting his armor back.
You think so? I think so too.
His face of disgust, and now what you're going to discuss for the best scene. Next scene is go ahead.
I also love how all of their armor is like beat to hell, but then Crosshair's is all shiny and new still.
Yeah.
It hasn't seen a thing or two. It's been in a nice box. But in that scene, Crosshair wanders off and he finds Mayday's old helmet, which broke my heart. It's seldom that you get. Actually, it's not seldom. It's very regular that you get a one-off episode with a clone that you think is just the coolest, and then they die. And you see him find all of the old clone helmets on the ground, all dusty in a corner,
frozen over.
Yeah, and you kind of see Crosshair give it the once over because all of them never really cared about the regs. The regs gave them shit. It was a very big rivalry kind of dynamic. There were very few clones, I think, that really gave them the proper respect that they deserve. But that's what happens when you are faced with you're a part of a clone army and hear these genetically.
I mean, but we even got to see
clones.
that within the regs with the Heavy and Fives and Echo. Like they were considered made of lesser quality because Jango Fett's DNA wasn't stretching as far as they needed to.
Yeah. Clones are mean.
Clones.
They can be mean.
They're really all the fucking same, and they all want to be mean.
I know.
But I guess they're also siblings. So this scene right here, though, is where I got angry at Hunter. Because you're right. Crosshair walks over, sees it, starts dusting them off, and like takes care to like pick them up and brush them and like put them like all of them, not just Mayday's.
All of them.
He picks up all, and he didn't even really talk to the other two that were there. There were two others, right?
Yeah, because there were only three that
Yeah, and just puts them up, and there's like 4 or 5 helmets, so you know that there are other people that, and he puts them all up, and it's one of those things where he is having a like actually intimate moment.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter walks in, and it's just like he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I don't trust you." And
give it a break.
Crosshair knows he's there, but doesn't even dignify it. He's like, "This moment
is for me.
Is more important. It's for me, and it's for them, and they did not deserve this." And he sets it up in very much like a fallen soldier, like very much the end of the final season of the Clone Wars with Ahsoka.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because I was waiting to get there, and I'm like, what are the odds that they're gonna have like it's already been made? But then I was also like, well, it's probably not made because I don't think they took clones with them. They only took stormtroopers or STs.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't have. They're not gonna give a shit. And this is where, Crosshair's like, no, these people did something that mattered. They were good soldiers. They did everything they were supposed to.
Not to the Empire.
And so he sets it up.
Jerks. And then we get to the giant Alaskan bullworm scene as they're devising a plan to like get the power back on.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Batcher, arguable MVP of the episode, is like, hey, going crazy. And if your dog goes crazy, something's out there.
Something's out there.
I didn't have it as a worm, honestly, though. When I was thinking about what was out there in the beginning, I didn't think it was raiders. I definitely thought it was some sort of different creature. But a worm, it was
gonna be like more raiders, like just another group that came in. I would have taken like a shark, like an ice shark, an orca, like a whale, something along. Like to me, like a caterpillar, a worm. I'm like, I don't feel like you should be as prevalent in this climate as you apparently are.
Yeah.
So.
Empire's always putting their bases smack dab in the middle of some really hostile just wildlife.
I mean, yeah, but if you
Natural
keep it
security?
away, like natural security, you're right. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can waste people on that. Yeah.
Anything that's past the sensors, good luck. So yeah, then we get to the whole worm sequence. It was nice to see Hunter and Crosshair work together throughout that entire. Would you really call it kind of a chase sequence? Kind of not.
I would call it a chase sequence.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would say this is completely a chase sequence. It is. They are being chased. They are running to and from. It's a chase sequence. It might as well be.
Yeah, and I also thought it was kind of the least interesting part of the episode because it's just kind of, I mean, I know that everything is on the table for this season. Anybody could die at any point.
Yeah.
Except for Rex. Like, we know Rex gets out, but everybody else on the show is, they don't have plot armor like he does. And even then with Rex, we don't know how he ends up in the middle of a sand desert, not
that
even
the Empire know about and are okay with.
Which is, that's a hell of a point A to a point B that we've got to figure out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was nice seeing them work together. I liked everybody's teamwork in this episode too.
Mm-hmm.
You had Echo spotting them, Crosshair and Hunter playing with a giant worm. Wrecker as the courier.
That feels like that would be the most Wrecker part to be with.
See, that's what I was thinking.
It's like, Crosshair and Hunter playing with the giant worm. I'm like, you're saying those characters. I know they did it. I watched the episode, but I'm like,
it should have been Wrecker.
That was a Wrecker, wasn't it? That was a Wrecker moment.
And then Omega if you put Omega and Echo together, I think they roughly equal tech. Roughly.
Yes.
Just not as quick with it. But they can still get the job done.
I think, like I said, Omega is going to be the best parts of all of them.
Yeah.
As her own. Yeah, I just think she'd be. You're right. I don't think they're right. Tech.
But yeah, so it was nice seeing the dynamic of everybody working together. I think this is kind of something we can continue with. Mm-hmm. Again, Batcher doing
the digging, the heavy lifting,
doing all the digging. Very interesting seeing Crosshair dig with his sniper rifle. He's just shooting in circles.
I like how it's
loosening
like
up the snow.
The ice, though.
Yeah,
like it shows that there's friction. This is superheated plasma. Also, shout out to like Star Wars for using breakers the same way we use industrial breakers, having to charge and prime it. I'm like fucking right. They don't just boop, it works. Nope, you have to prime that shit to get the turning the dials to align it. That was weird, but everything else was good. Actually, no, I could justify it like an MTS, but that's not. I like when I can like look at stuff I work with and go, no, that's okay. No, that makes sense. That's correct. That's actually
that's relevant.
Could have to happen.
Good to know that if you get dropped in the Star Wars universe, that I have a guy who can at least prime a breaker.
I can at least prime that breaker for you.
How you feeling with the Arabesh and the data pads? Can I rely on you for that?
The data pads?
Yeah.
I got questions for the data pads. That like we can do that towards the end. Like I got a couple questions for
you. Well, we'll get back to that, but I think we're in the same neighborhood.
Can we talk about the one-liner that like happens right as that sequence is like starting and shit's starting to go like a little squirrely for him, of Crosshair looking at Hunter and going, "You're not mad at me. You're mad at you because I got Echo out and you didn't get to save
Omega.
her." Oh, I got Omega out. Damn. I got Omega out. You. I got Omega out and you didn't save her. You failed. You're the reason she got captured. I risked everything to tell you to get the fuck out. I told you to get the fuck out. And you failed.
He was spitting bars.
And it was just one of those things where you're like, oh, if he punches you in the face, you deserve it. But if you hit him back, he deserves it. Like, this is, two wrongs don't make it right here, Crosshair.
And him saying all of that, it was Crosshair, he did risk everything and ended up getting tortured endlessly for it.
Mm-hmm.
He was right. He was right. I mean, he was. Oh, and that's that's why I had so much contempt for Hunter, which is rare because I love, I'm a big Hunter fan.
Hunter's great.
Yeah, but I was so pissed off at him with this episode, and for those reasons, like they risked everything. It was Crosshair who helped Omega escape. Give the guy some slack.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a great escape. It was the great escape. Yeah, Crosshair was right that like all the anger, like he messed up, and he addresses that, and he knows Crosshair knows he's messed up.
So stop holding it over his head already.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be back with you guys if he didn't know he messed up. Because you guys extended the olive branch to him at the end of the first season when they're on that landing pad on Camino, and he didn't take it then.
Yeah.
So, they end up getting the worm out. I like how they managed to put the line in. It's like, oh hey, wait until the worm's outside of the sensors so we don't get trapped in here with it.
Yeah.
And the worm buried the ship too.
Oh yeah, it's like half a wing, most of the landing gear. Like the United flight that just had a tire fall off was in better shape than the ship was going to be. Shout out to some relevance in this podcast.
Oh, current events.
Yeah.
So obviously it works out. Again, shout out Badger for helping to dig the hole that gets Hunter out. Loved seeing Crosshair pull up Hunter by the rifle.
Yeah.
Just cool little detail. And then in my brain I was thinking, like, how much is that like a reliable?
Oh yeah, definitely
flinging?
is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally you're not worried about that thing, Mm-hmm. Hey, he does have a very nice rifle. So I guess as a pulling device,
probably mostly metal. He's probably got a really good composite stock. He'll probably have to tighten some things down, but no, it'd be all right. You can totally, if you were to unchamber around and unlock something, pull someone up with an M4 or a 249. So I could see the same thing here. You can do it with the Barrett.
I love with the Barrett 50 cal, right?
50. Yeah, think of a Halo ODST. Like, that sniper rifle takes a gravity hammer.
That's fair.
It warps the fuck out of it. It ain't gonna work anymore.
But it takes it.
It takes it. Doesn't break. So that's my it could work.
That's fair. So obviously they get the worm out of the sensor range. I love the worm's just like, dang it.
Oh man.
I hate this song. You guys suck. I finally get to come near the base, and then you guys drive me out again.
I'm going home.
And he just goes home.
He does. Crosshair does shoot him in the mouth once, so
yeah.
I like that.
He had it coming.
Towards the end of the episode, though, he actually gets a couple shots off, and you're like, he still has him using the ice to superheat it and try to create something that could help get Hunter up, and then 2, where he actually hits it in the mouth. It's like, okay, he hasn't lost his wherewithal. He understands what he's doing.
He's still useful, but he's adapting to it, and that's how the Bad Batch has survived this long, is by adapting.
Yeah.
How much snow did they have to shovel? The cutscene.
They're boop boop, the screen pan and the ship's out. What was that? 45 minutes?
Yeah, and I was like, who dug that out? But then you see Hunter coming with a shovel, and I was like, that is a small shovel, my man.
They're all Wrecker has everyone has a shovel. I'm like, those are still small shovels, guys.
You have Batcher. Batcher probably just carried the weight.
I mean, you saw how fast Batcher dug down to the base of the door. That is...
Give that hound a break. Get him a treat.
Everyone else gets to do that. So they dig the ship out, but can we talk about... Did you notice anything when they were flying away?
When they were flying away?
When they were flying away. Did you notice anything about the background?
I noticed how pretty the mountains were.
Yes. Did you notice why they were exceptionally pretty?
Why?
They weren't CG.
It was just like a painting.
It was a drawn, painted thing.
It looked like it. I was wondering that. That's pretty.
When they flew in, it was CG, and you could see the textures. And you could see it still had some drawings and stuff on it, but it was a complete still image. So they come in. Everything okay? Mrs. Play made a huge commotion upstairs, and so that's why we were. You guys might not hear it, but
I hope it picked it up.
It was like,
she's actually stomping right above us now.
Just goose.
Make sure they know I was right.
I'm so glad she doesn't listen to me. Anyway, but so they're flying in. It's more CG. It's a little bit more dynamic. You see the base, and it's like there's something's not finished here. There's still a lot left here. The last one's a still life. Like it's a complete captured moment in time. You watch the bird fly away, the bird that was circling the entire time, like all the death and everything that happened here, like a scavenger. The bird leaves. The entire tight way they do the backdrop leaves. They fly off. Congratulations, Crosshair, you have done it. Like, who you were is no longer who you are. It is definitively different, and that area is done.
Beautifully said.
God, I love the imagery in the show.
I was still hoping. Well, Dave. Listen, they obviously threw more money at Dave's projects throughout the years.
I mean, yeah, he's got to fix everything.
Yeah,
and again,
and I mean, I'm sure if you put everything side by side, what's going to come up on top, as in the most well-received Star Wars project, it's going to be Filoni's at the top.
At the top, and then yeah,
Favreau's the only person I think that gives him the run for his money, but even then,
what about George Lucas? You think George Lucas?
Well, I'm talking about in the new Disney.
I know it's a joke.
God,
I would say Dave.
We're talking about George Jr. here, okay? And all of his cowboy glory.
What about Sam Whitaker? I can't wait for his show.
Jeez.
It's just him playing the 6 characters he's played. I'm asked, so I really want to know, when is he showing up? He's got to. He's been in every single Star Wars animated thing now. He's been in most of the TV shows. I think he hasn't been in The Mandalorian yet, which kind of makes me sad.
I thought he had a casting. I thought he made a cameo in The Mandalorian. Not as one of his characters, just like a general cameo. Did he not?
I don't know.
But yeah, beautiful end of the episode. I really wish we got more dialogue between Hunter and Crosshair, but I mean that's kind of par for the course for the characters. It's like, Crosshair's like, yeah, I've done a lot of bad things. I made the call what I thought it was right. I wasn't, and it was nice to see them kind of bury the hatchet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was Echo at the end saying, "Hey, it's actually worked out a lot better than before."
Yeah. Oh, there's no blood this time.
Yeah. What do you mean last time? Because I mean that's the nature of how they are. Two sides of the same coin. You saw their friction points from the very instant that we met them.
Mm-hmm.
Crosshair was a dick at the end of the Clone Wars. He was a dick.
Oh, he was.
He was awful.
And we still don't know how much of it was him being...
Oh, I'm not talking about the start of the Bad Batch. I'm talking about when they were on Anaxis.
Oh, okay.
When we get introduced to the Bad Batch.
Oh, okay.
And shout out to everybody, you and I included. We might have said this on a podcast a long time ago. I can't remember when we started doing our Star Wars podcast.
We did one for end of season 1 to a Bad Batch. We're gonna do more, and then we did this again for like Ahsoka as like the big one.
Yeah. So you and I, because back before we did a pod, Chris and I would talk about Star Wars religiously, and we do all the time.
Yeah, 10-minute trip to get coffee 2 hours later.
Yep. Everybody, when the Bad Batch was announced, was like, "Oh, cool show. All right, we didn't really need this, but okay." And now all of us are just like, it's a work of art. The transition time between the end of the Republic to the baby days of the Empire. Everything's so heavy. Why is this show ending after the 3rd season? It's that sort of thing. Squidward's future.
I do like that Dave's like, no, I have a story to tell. This is their story.
It's a hell of a story.
It's a great story. It doesn't need to go on forever. It just needs to be good.
They appeared in one arc of the Clone Wars, got their own show, and is just pulling punches.
I do love the joke that even Dave made in the first season where everyone was like, Dave, you can't just keep creating the Clone Wars. Bad Batch. Clone Wars burns off Bad Batch. It's like, God damn it, Dave knows he can. He knows he can do whatever the fuck he wants, and we're gonna watch it. So I do have a couple of things for you that like these are like subtle little details that Mrs. Play and I were even talking about, and this is the stupid minutia for us to like kind of end on. One, the iPad. We're gonna call it an iPad. I know it's a dad.
It's an iPad.
It's an iPad. Mrs. Play was like, "Hey, that IP address is tracked, right?" And I was like, "God damn it, probably fucking is." But then again, they couldn't access it until they were on that. So I'm guessing they probably could have gotten there and gotten away and done a couple jumps to get away.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, you downloaded a bunch of shit on there. What's to say they don't give you access because it's like they're just looking for it in the net.
Yeah, it's of all the Imperial tech that we've seen, like the iPad, such a new. It's a new one because at Tantus it's so weird. Like you have to iPad in and out of doors and locations, and you keep it on your person, and it's
so coming in as somebody who does some security tech stuff. There's some shit like that.
I know it's just weird to see it in Star Wars. Not weird to see it in Star Wars, but it's interesting to see it on the Empire's point of view, just because it's something that we haven't seen before.
And I also don't think we've seen the like decoders that come out that were shown off in Rebels, like where it's like, hey, when you have like your rank, you stick that in. That's literally your key, which I do think is really cool.
Oh, it's so cool. Makes their pocket worth it.
Two, Omega is like they're trying to like grill Crosshair and Omega, like, what did you guys get? Well, sorry, they're grilling Crosshair, asking Omega, and she's like, oh, even Emery didn't get to go down there. I'm like, who's Emery? She's a clone like us. There was no reaction. Like they might have looked, like they might have looked around for a second. I don't think Emery's a clone. I think that they're like, this is some bullshit. I don't think she's actually a clone, or if she is not.
This is you speaking on the Bad Batch's behalf, right?
Yeah,
like you don't like. Okay.
I don't think she's a Camino clone. I think she might be another clone from a rival company, because like when we first get introduced in the Clone Wars movie, Dax. When everyone goes to see him, he goes, they're them cloners. Cloners. If you're
Cloners on Camino, yeah.
Pocketbook, speaking of. I think it's kind of like, it's kind of like Boeing versus like Lockheed. Like there are like 8 million companies that make missiles, but there are like 4 that make really good ones.
Yeah.
So I think Camino is just, hey, they give you the designer clones.
Well, so I think it's Emery's still a Camino, like a Kaminoan clone, as in the people. But if you remember back in the first season when Omega gets taken, and Tanway's trying to like negotiate her, or I guess like pick her up from that abandoned Camino, like Kaminoan facility. They're on a different planet, and that's where we see the end of Tanway. Like it was the episode with Cad Bane was there, and then why am I blanking on Boba Fett's right hand lady?
Oh,
Fennec. There we go. Her name has not been coming easy to me lately. I don't know why. And so, I mean, for all we know, she could have come from a different facility and wasn't on Camino. But it seems like, I don't know. It's weird that they don't react to it.
Yeah,
like a female clone, and we still don't get like confirmation. Like, is she a clone from Jango Fett's like side of things? Or
I don't. I think that's what I'm thinking, because like, he found me and found a use for me.
It's weird.
I don't think she's a Camino clone. I think she is somebody else's, like, this is the best that they put out. But it's like, okay, this is the best Chevy. I don't know. Like, this is the best Pinto that like has ever been made. And then it's like, cool, like this car, and then you get someone puts out like, this is the Mustang, and it just dances circles around it for whatever reason. And so that's why I don't think she's a clone, but she is not a clone. She is not one of them. Like that's all I want to drill down to. She's not like Omega. She's not like the Bad Batch. She's not even like any Jango Fett clones. She is just
a clone.
Maybe. That's all I have. That's the only thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
That whole tangent is for that.
I do hope we get more from. Like, we have to get more from Emery's character, right?
You want to see how angry I get on X? Yeah, we'll get something. Blue Sky, Dave will get some shit. Find his publisher and start sending him mail. Sorry.
Chris needs answers. But yeah, great one to end off on. We're gonna have a longer podcast next week.
We're gonna have a few things next week, so we can talk about this now. Next Saturday, you and I are hopefully going to finish you and I are hopefully going to finish Jade Empire. Recording it'll be a couple things coming out.
Great Let's Play. Go watch it.
Gen Z saves China.
Yes. Something like that. Gen Z tries not to get her rump kicked.
Yeah,
beyond a save point.
You're good.
Beyond a save point.
It's okay. But something else really important comes out next week. Aside from the Bad Batch.
What?
Battlefront 2.
Oh, yes.
So.
For the PlayStation.
Yep. So.
I'm buying it for you.
Thank you.
We're grinding some classic Battlefront.
I'm thinking, depending on when we do when we record, we either do a Saturday morning or a Saturday night, and we do like old school LAN party. We start at like 11 o'clock, and we just fucking go. And you don't have to be here for it. You have to be at the studio for it. But like, I don't
have to be in the crib.
You don't have to be in the crib. You can just like, but we play some Battlefront 2 online.
I think I'd have to be here.
Why?
Because I don't have a mic.
What are you talking about?
For my PlayStation.
No, and do you have Discord? Do you not have a stand mic?
Well, yeah, I have the one you gave me, but it's attached to the computer. Well,
yeah, so Discord.
Can you use Discord on your PlayStation?
Yeah, technically.
Wow.
And I would also, or I could just
really?
hop on, I could just hop on Discord and we get in a call together, like how we've done podcasts in the past, and then we like, ba-doop, and we stream, and then I can put the new graphics and stuff up.
I'd probably rather come over here. I like your couch. Shout out the couch just off screen.
We're gonna figure that out then. All right, we can do like take turns, like old school.
Oh no. Well, anyway, but
we'll figure that one out. But yeah,
it's gonna come to the channel. Yeah,
it's gonna come to the channel. Probably have a couple. I'll probably force him to do a couple streams like this with some Battlefront 2. It'll just be us like probably just on shooting the shit, talking about Star Wars, playing Battlefront because it's fucking Battlefront and it's great. And as much as I'm a huge fan and really hyped for Helldivers, Battlefront's gonna take it. I'm also buying it on my Switch because I think it's cross-platform. So that way, if I'm ever on travel and you're like, hey, you know what I want to do? Or if I'm like, hey, I can't stream this week because Mrs. Play and I are gonna be here, I can be like,
we've captured a command post.
You want to play some Battlefront and just throw it up on Twitch? So stay tuned for stuff like that. I'm very excited for more stuff like that. Next week, expect another hour and a half podcast, guys. Next week, this one's like right at the hour mark.
Yeah. Also, I mean, we're getting 2 episodes, so we'll really have to cram it in.
That's why I was saying probably about an hour and a half. So we'll probably do an hour and a half podcast next Friday. Of course, everything comes out on Saturday. For those of you guys watching now, check out our lovely faces on on YouTube. Right after this, will be out tomorrow morning around the same time as our podcast. I will go ahead and drop a link to the socials right here in our chat, so you can go ahead and follow us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram to see what we're up to. Maybe some cool Instagram photos for tomorrow for the nonsense that we're going to be up to, because I'm excited for that.
And also, don't forget to send us snail mail. Not through the U.S. mail. I want you to send your mail attached to a snail and give it our address, and we'll go from there. It might take a while, but I'll read it.
You just need to address Roni. She deserves it.
She's not getting a response from me right now.
Remember, y'all winners out there, take care of your friends here and elsewhere. Keep it weird, and have a fantastic rest of your night, everybody.
Woo!